about what you're going to do when you start eating healthier, start exercising, start feeling like maybe it's going to work this time, and then weigh yourself and realize that you're exactly the same weight as when you started. Or even better, you've gained 1.5 pounds. Because let's face it, it's going to happen. The scale is not always going to be an accurate reflection of how far you've come or how much you've accomplished. And normally, the second people stop seeing results, that's when 90% of them give up. They figure, why should I bother to keep doing all this hard work if nothing's going to change? And even if they don't give up at this point, they might at the very least start to wonder, why even bother to weigh myself then, if the scale is just going to frustrate me to no end? I totally get that. Before I started this whole health and wellness journey, I believed that owning a scale was pointless. I thought that as long as I felt good and my clothes seemed to fit okay, who cared what I weighed? I still, for the most part, believe that. However, without a scale in the house, I know from experience that it's incredibly easy to wake up one day and have gained 30 or 40 pounds seemingly overnight, especially when, as in my case, you work from home and wear sweats or leggings all the time. So a scale not only keeps us aware of what's going on with our bodies, but it also helps keep us accountable. I recommend buying a digital scale because it'll show you not only your weight, but a number of other factors like body fat, metabolic age, BMI, which is your body mass index, subcutaneous fat, visceral fat, and a lot more. Once I got the scale, I started to find that I actually looked forward to weighing myself every morning. And you probably already know this, but always make sure that you weigh yourself first thing in the morning before you've had anything to eat or drink. It's normal for your weight to fluctuate throughout the day, and you'll generally be your heaviest in the late afternoon or evening. So always, weigh yourself in the morning. You know that. So anyway, weighing myself became kind of fun in a way, and I loved how I could see all the stats right there on my phone. However, it wasn't all fun and games. Believe me, I had many, many days when I wanted to throw that damn scale right out the window. There was actually a time during my journey that I became so frustrated by my lack of results that I actually almost did throw it out the window. So this is what happened. I started my weight loss journey on January 11th at about 180 pounds, with a goal of being 150 pounds by May 22nd for my stepdaughter's wedding. The first time I got below 170 was on March 14th, and I can't tell you how excited I was. I thought at the time that maybe my goal was realistic. Maybe I could actually do it. And then the scale stopped moving, as in completely stopped. For over a month, from March 14th to April 18th, I could not get the numbers on that damn scale to change. And believe me, I was working hard. I was eating clean, avoiding all the yuck in my diet, going for walks every day, and working out almost every day. Yet for that entire month, I fluctuated somewhere between 167 and 169, never going above 169 and never going below 167. I can't begin to tell you how frustrating this was for me. Watching my weight go below 170 had been so rewarding for me. And I'd been experiencing such positive feelings and forward momentum, excited every day to see my hard work paying off as those numbers went down. So when it seemed to get stuck at around 168, I felt like I was doomed to stay there forever. This was a very, very low point for me. After all, I'd been working so hard. What was wrong with me? And better yet, what was the point of working so hard if nothing was gonna change? I just wanted to quit. I would at least be happier, right? Wrong. Thank goodness I had my journal and my vision boards. They helped to serve as a reminder at this, the lowest of the low points, of why I was doing this why I would, in fact, not be happier just quitting and going back to eating whatever and vegging out in front of the TV with a carton of ice cream. Because when I had created those vision boards, I had also experienced the feeling of possibility. And because I'd already experienced it, I knew that it was real, that it could happen, and that this was just a temporary setback. So I vowed not to give up, even though it was exactly what I wanted to do. Instead, I reclaimed my sanity somehow and began to focus on the other factors that I'd been ignoring. Starting with the obvious, muscle weighs more than fat. We all know this. So when we start losing fat and gaining muscle, we're not necessarily going to see a huge shift on the scale right away. Or like in my case, we might see the weight start to drop off quickly at first, but then stop for a while. I knew this, and yet had still allowed myself to get caught up in the numbers on the scale as if they were the only indicators of my hard work, which they weren't. I started keeping track of all the other things that were also happening. First, I had more energy. I was now able to go for 30-minute walks every day, where before I was lucky if I could make it for 10 minutes without wanting to stop and take a nap. Number two, I could feel myself getting stronger. I had started out being barely able to do 1 or 2 push-ups. Now I could do 13 at a time. Number three, my jeans weren't quite as tight and they looked better. Also, I could tell in the mirror that my face had thinned out a little bit, my color had improved, and I just looked better overall. I wasn't at my ideal weight yet, but I was definitely already an improved version of myself. So why not keep going? Reframing my perspective to thinking about what I had accomplished made me realize that I had indeed been making progress. However, I have to say that realizing I wasn't going to achieve my goal on time was a little disheartening. It's hard not to feel like a failure when you work really hard for something and don't succeed. I had many, many moments when I felt so discouraged that I really wanted to give up. Then I remembered something I used to talk about with my class when I taught 3rd grade. I used to do a whole lesson at the beginning of the year about goal setting, about how it's important to set goals because they not only tell us what we're working for, but also help to keep track of everything we've accomplished. I told the kids that if they kept their goals in mind and worked on them a little bit each and every day, they would eventually reach them. I also told them that it was important to set a time limit for reaching those goals because otherwise they might start to forget about them. And that if they had a really big goal that was super important to them and would take a whole lot of work to accomplish, then the best way to tackle it was to set a series of smaller goals to reach along the way. I'll never forget one day when this sweet little girl in my class raised her hand and with eyes as wide as saucers said softly, "Mrs. Feigart, what if you work really, really hard and do all of the monitoring along the way and stuff and do everything you're supposed to do. And then when you get to that time when the big goal is supposed to be done, like at the end of the year, and you realize that you couldn't do it, does that mean that you failed?" I could feel every pair of eyes in that room focused on me. Every kid in that classroom was waiting to hear with bated breath how their teacher was going to respond to this question. After all, my response to this was going to tell them a whole lot about what their 3rd grade year was going to be like. I knew I had to be very careful with my response. I'd had students over the years who hadn't quite made their end of year goals, even though they had worked really, really hard throughout the year. Did that mean that they were failures? Of course not. So I smiled and said, absolutely not. The goal is just kind of the end product of all of your hard work. And it's your hard work that's important. That's why we check in along the way so that we can monitor ourselves and see how we're doing. Then we can adjust our goals if we need to. The important thing is that we always do our best in every situation. That way, we're always improving. Make sense? I could feel the class breathe a collective sigh of relief. Now they knew that as long as they were working hard and doing their best, they could never fail in my classroom. It's so interesting that years later, I would remember this classroom moment and use it to help me stay inspired to lose weight. Life is so funny. After remembering this story, I was able to realize that just like I told my classroom of third graders, I wasn't a failure. I had monitored my progress, but I'd also forgotten to set smaller goals. So here I was. The wedding was less than a month away, and it was definitely not realistic to think that I was going to lose over 20 pounds in 1 month, at least not in any kind of healthy way. And no, I'm not going to have Hershey syrup for lunch every day. So I decided that if I could just get the dress to zip and maybe even have a little wiggle room, I would be happy. After all, my family really couldn't care less what I looked like. All they cared about was me being there. I want you to let that sink in for a minute. No one cares if you've gained a little weight. They only care about you. And most people aren't going to be judgmental about something like that because they too are struggling with something, whether it's also weight gain or something else like finances, illness, and a number of things that it could be, right? And it's crazy to think about, but once you realize that, it's a whole lot easier to be compassionate towards yourself. I could probably write a whole other course on what I just said. Maybe I'll do that at some point. For now, let's just say, I know you've heard the term, you are your greatest critic. Well, it's very, very true. The reason I shared this story about my third graders with you is because I think it holds a valuable lesson that I hope you'll take to heart. So here's the takeaway. Set a really big goal that is super important to you and will take a whole lot of work to accomplish. Give yourself a time limit to reach this goal. Then set a series of smaller goals to reach along the way and reward yourself when you reach them. Your reward can be anything that makes you happy. New clothes, new makeup, new jewelry, maybe something you wouldn't get for yourself ordinarily and that will keep you working because you're looking forward to it. Also, work hard and do your best. As long as you keep going, you can never fail. So here's an example of what this looked like for me. I set my ultimate goal of losing 29 pounds, well, like 30 pounds, and getting down to 150 pounds by May 22nd for my stepdaughter's wedding. I tracked my progress using the app on my phone that came with my digital scale. By mid-April, I realized that this goal wasn't really realistic anymore. And so rather than just give up, I set a more achievable milepost goal of getting down to 160. That way, I wasn't failing. I was just monitoring and adjusting and also celebrating my success along the way. So, your homework tonight is to set your goals. Page 11 of your weight loss journal is where you're going to set your ultimate goal. This is the one, as I would say to my third graders, that's the really big goal that's super important to you and will take a whole lot of work to accomplish. Next, you'll write down a date that you'd like to achieve this goal by. So when I first set my ultimate goal, I wanted to achieve it by the wedding on May 22nd. This gave me a really strong motivation to keep going. Do you have any kind of important event coming up that will serve as a motivating factor for you? If not, just choose a date in the future that seems realistic. And remember, the date is not really that important, and it's definitely not set in stone. It's really just a motivational tool to keep you focused and working hard. So once you've set your ultimate goal, on page 12, you'll write down how you're going to track your progress. This is a critical step that will allow you to hold yourself accountable and celebrate your success along the way. Next, you're going to write down how else you can track your progress. When I was feeling discouraged that I hadn't reached my weight loss goal within the original time frame, I started thinking about other ways to track my accomplishments. Some examples of this are that my clothes weren't as tight, I felt stronger, I had more energy and endurance, And I also started receiving compliments about how I looked. Okay, finally, on page 14 of your weight loss journal, you're going to set 3 milepost goals and how you're going to reward yourself when you reach each one. For example, if you're currently at 200 pounds and your ultimate goal is to lose 45 pounds, you would just split that up into 3 smaller goals to reach along the way. Now, before I let you go to complete your homework, I want to share with you 2 photos of me. One is from April of 2021, and one is from April of 2022. I chose these 2 particular pictures about a year apart to emphasize 2 points. The first picture was taken months before I just happened to casually step on a scale at my in-laws' Christmas party in December of 2021. Now, I'd been aware that I was gaining a little bit of weight and really started feeling it when nothing I tried on for the party fit me, but I was shocked to learn that I was up to 183 pounds. Because I was working from home and primarily wearing sweats or leggings, it felt like the weight gain had happened almost overnight. However, looking at this picture from April of 2021, it clearly didn't. I had already gained a significant amount of weight by then. I just didn't have a scale to know exactly how much. So my first point is this: get a scale. It will help not only by shifting your awareness, but also keeping you accountable. Now, the second picture was taken in April of 2022, right when I was feeling super frustrated about being stuck for over a month between 167 and 169 pounds. So this was right at the time when I wanted to give up, when I almost did give up. Yet I want you to notice that besides being another year older and the sun shining right in my face in the second picture, and that annoying little whatever that is in between my eyebrows, you can clearly see a difference in my physique. I was actually quite shocked when I compared these 2 pictures side by side. So in the second picture, I wasn't anywhere near my goal of 150 pounds, and yet I look so much better than in the first. So my second point is that I want you to remember that the scale is not the only indicator of your success. Keep going. Even if you feel stuck, don't give up. Celebrate your progress. Page 14 of your journal has a place for you to compare photos of yourself. You can do this whenever you want throughout your journey as a way to track your progress. I have one more picture I want to show you. By the date of the wedding, which was May 22nd, I was still nowhere near my ultimate goal. I was still about 162 pounds. But in this picture, I think I look pretty damn good. Just another reminder that even if you haven't reached your ultimate goal yet, your progress shows. So that's it. Don't forget to do your homework, which is pages 11 through 14, I think, of your weight loss journal. And congratulations. If you're still here with me, which you are, and I know you're well on your way to reaching your weight loss goals. Love you. Bye.